The rain started as a gentle pitter-patter against the window panes of our apartment. I was curled up on the couch with a book I wasn't really reading, more just holding it as a prop while my mind wandered. That's when Jake walked in, hair slightly damp from having just come in from outside. "It's really coming down now," he said, shaking water droplets from his jacket before hanging it on the hook by the door. We'd been roommates for almost a year now, sharing this small two-bedroom apartment that somehow felt both too cramped and too spacious depending on the day. Jake and I had met through mutual friends in college, and when we both ended up in the same city post-graduation, roommate arrangements just made financial sense. What didn't make sense were the feelings I'd been developing over the past few months. Jake grabbed a beer from the fridge and walked over to the living room window, the one with the deep sill that we'd turned into a makeshift seat with cushions. "Come check this out," he called over to me, his voice carrying that easy confidence that always made my stomach do a little flip. I set my book down and joined him at the window. The rain had intensified, sheets of water cascading down the glass, transforming the city lights outside into blurry, watercolor smudges of yellow and red. There was something hypnotic about it, the rhythm of the droplets, the soft rumble of distant thunder. "I've always loved thunderstorms," I said, trying to fill the silence with something. Anything that wouldn't reveal how aware I was of our shoulders almost touching as we both leaned toward the glass. Jake nodded, taking a sip of his beer. "Me too. Reminds me of when I was a kid. My mom would make hot chocolate, and we'd just watch the storm from our porch." His voice had that soft quality it got when he talked about home, a gentleness that few people got to hear. I wondered sometimes if he knew how much I cataloged these little moments, these glimpses into who he really was beneath the easygoing exterior. Let me explain why this matters. These quiet moments of connection. In a world where everyone is constantly performing, constantly crafting their image, there's something profoundly intimate about sharing silence with someone, about being comfortable enough with another person that you don't need to fill every moment with chatter. As we sat there, watching the rain transform our ordinary neighborhood into something magical, I felt that rare sense of being exactly where I was supposed to be, even as another part of me ached with the knowledge that Jake didn't see me the way I saw him. The window began to fog up from our breath, a small circle of condensation forming where Jake had leaned his forehead against the glass. Without thinking, I reached out and traced a small spiral in the fog with my fingertip. Jake watched my finger move across the glass, and then, to my surprise, added his own line, connecting to mine, creating a pattern that meant nothing and everything at once. "Your hands are always so warm," he said, and before I could process what was happening, he took my hand in his, comparing our palms like we were kids on a playground. "See? Mine are always cold." His touch sent electricity up my arm, but I fought to keep my expression neutral. "Poor circulation," I managed to say, my voice thankfully steadier than I felt. "You should exercise more." He laughed at that, not letting go of my hand right away. Says the person who used the elevator to go up one floor yesterday. The teasing was familiar territory, safe ground, even as the physical contact between us felt charged with something new. When he finally released my hand, I felt both relief and disappointment wash over me. The rain continued to pour, creating a cocoon of sound around us. Our apartment, usually just a place we both happened to live, felt transformed into a private world. The blue-gray light filtering through the rain-streaked windows cast everything in a dreamlike glow. Jake shifted position, leaning his back against the window frame, so he was facing me instead of the glass. "Tell me something you've never told anyone," he said suddenly. This was another thing about Jake, these moments of unexpected depth that would emerge from nowhere, catching me off guard. I considered his question, weighing how honest I could be. "I'm scared I'm going to wake up one day and realize I've been playing it too safe," I said finally. "That I've been so afraid of messing things up that I never really lived." The words hung between us, more revealing than I'd intended. Jake nodded slowly, considering. "I get that," he said. "Sometimes I think we create these invisible boundaries for ourselves. Lines we won't cross because we're afraid of what's on the other side." Was he talking about us? About this unspoken thing that sometimes seemed to hover in the air between us? Or was I projecting, seeing what I wanted to see? The window had fogged up completely now, obscuring the world outside, turning our reflection into ghostly outlines. There was something symbolic about it, How we could see each other clearly one moment, and the next everything would be clouded with uncertainty. Jake reached out and drew a simple, smiley face in the condensation. I added 2 horns to it, making it devilish. He laughed and added a halo above the horns. Complicated, he said, and I wasn't sure if he was referring to our collaborative drawing or something more. Here's what this means in practice. These moments of playfulness, of creative collaboration, they create bonds that go deeper than we realize. There's intimacy in creating something together, even something as simple and ephemeral as a drawing on fogged glass. It's like we're saying to each other, I see you, I'm responding to you, we're in this shared moment together. As the evening progressed, we somehow ended up sitting side by side on the window seat, backs against opposite walls, legs extended so they were almost but not quite touching. Jake had put on some music, something acoustic and gentle that blended perfectly with the sound of the rain. We talked about everything and nothing, work frustrations, childhood memories, the documentary he'd watched last weekend about deep-sea creatures. The kind of conversation that meanders like a river, no clear destination, but flowing nonetheless. At some point, I noticed our breathing had synchronized. Each inhale, each exhale, perfectly in time with one another. It's a phenomenon I'd read about once. How humans naturally synchronize their breathing and even their heartbeats when they feel connected to one another. I wondered if Jake noticed it too, this physical manifestation of our attunement to each other. I wondered if he could hear my heartbeat accelerating when he leaned forward to make a point, bringing his face closer to mine than strictly necessary. The rain began to ease, transitioning from a downpour to a gentle patter. Jake's phone buzzed with a text, breaking the bubble we'd been in. He checked it, smiled slightly, then put the phone face down on the cushion. Sarah wants to know if I want to grab drinks tomorrow, he said casually. Sarah, the girl he'd been on a few dates with recently. The reminder of his straightness, of the reality of our situation, felt like a bucket of cold water. You should go, I said, working to keep my voice light. She seems nice. Jake nodded, but his expression was unreadable. Yeah, she is, he said, but there was a hesitation in his voice I couldn't interpret. You might be wondering why I didn't just tell him how I felt. Let me explain. Friendship is a precious thing, especially the kind of easy, comfortable friendship Jake and I had built. The risk of losing that, of making things awkward in the place where we both lived, seemed too great. And yet in moments like these, with the rain creating a soundtrack and the dim light softening everything, the words would rise to my throat, dangerous and tempting. Jake stretched his arms above his head, his t-shirt riding up slightly to reveal a strip of skin above his jeans. I looked away, focusing intently on the pattern of raindrops on the window. I should probably get some work done, he said, though he made no move to get up. It was like we were both reluctant to break whatever spell the rain had cast over us. Yeah, me too, I agreed, equally motionless. Our eyes met, and there was a moment, just a flash, where I thought I saw something in his gaze, a question or an invitation. But then he blinked, and it was gone, if it had ever been there at all. Finally, Jake stood up, stretching again. Thanks for watching the rain with me, he said, and there was a warmth in his voice that made my chest tight. Anytime, I replied, meaning it more than he could know. As he walked toward his bedroom, he paused, turning back to me. You know what you said earlier, about being afraid of playing it too safe? I nodded, wondering where he was going with this. I think you're braver than you give yourself credit for, he said simply, and then he was gone, his bedroom door closing softly behind him. I remained at the window, watching as the rain gradually stopped, leaving the world outside washed clean and glistening. The window was beginning to clear, the fog dissipating, revealing the city lights once more. Our drawings were fading, the lines blurring until they disappeared completely. I pressed my palm against the glass where Jake's hand had been, feeling the coolness against my skin. That night, lying in bed, I replayed every moment, every word, every almost touch. Was I reading too much into it all? Probably. Jake was straight, after all. He dated women. He talked about women. And yet there were these moments, these connections, that felt like they existed in some liminal space beyond straightforward definitions of friendship. Maybe that was the beauty of it, this relationship that defied easy categorization, that lived in the in-between spaces. The next morning, I woke to the sound of Jake making coffee in the kitchen. The rain had stopped, leaving behind a crisp, clear day. When I emerged from my room, he slid a mug across the counter to me without asking, already prepared the way I liked it. "Morning," he said, his voice still rough with sleep. "Sleep okay?" I nodded, taking a grateful sip of the coffee. There was something different in the air between us, a shift I couldn't quite define. Not awkwardness, but an awareness, perhaps. Like we'd crossed some invisible threshold together and were now standing in new territory, trying to get our bearings. "About drinks with Sarah tonight," he said suddenly, focusing very intently on his own coffee mug. "I think I'm going to cancel." My heart did a traitorous little leap before I could suppress it. "Oh." I kept my tone neutral, not wanting to reveal too much. Jake shrugged, still not meeting my eyes. "Yeah, I don't think it's going anywhere." He finally looked up, and there was that same question in his eyes I thought I'd glimpsed the night before. "I was thinking maybe we could check out that new restaurant on Elm instead? The Italian place you mentioned wanting to try? Was this a date? Was this just roommate dinner?" The ambiguity was both frustrating and thrilling. "Sure," I said, trying to match his casual tone. "That sounds great." Jake smiled then, a genuine smile that crinkled the corners of his eyes. "Great," he echoed, and there was a warmth in that single word that felt like promise. I don't know what will happen with Jake and me. Maybe that night watching the rain was just a moment of connection between friends. Maybe the tension I felt was one-sided. Or maybe, just maybe, it was the beginning of something neither of us had anticipated. What I do know is this: there is magic in these ordinary moments, in shared silence, in synchronized breath, in fingers tracing patterns on fogged glass. There is intimacy in witnessing someone else's quiet joy, their contemplative sadness, their unguarded laughter. As I stood in our kitchen that morning, watching the sunlight stream through the windows that had been obscured by rain just hours before, I felt a sense of possibility unfurling. Whatever happened next, whether Jake and I remained just roommates, just friends, or became something more, I would carry that rainy evening with me. The memory of his fingers next to mine on the foggy glass, the rhythm of our breathing falling into sync, the way the world outside disappeared until it was just the two of us, suspended in time while the rain fell around us. Sometimes the most profound connections happen in the quietest moments. Sometimes the deepest revelations come not from grand declarations, but from the simple act of being present with another person, of truly seeing them and being seen in return. And sometimes, just sometimes, the fog clears to reveal something beautiful that was there all along, waiting to be discovered. Total _char_count, 13,065.